You're essentially trying to figure out your odds of success. So in the MarTech, there's a bunch of software that's being built, maybe not necessarily the best place to go into. In travel tech, the margins are relatively low, I would argue. And then sales tech, this is where I believe there's a humongous potential for disruption, especially with large language models and the sophistication levels that we're currently at. So I thought to myself, Salesforge, that's the type of product I want to build.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Growth Leap. I'm your host, Michel Gagnon. We talk to pretty awesome business builders who are designing disruptive and meaningful companies. Hi everyone, get ready for a lively chat with Frank Sondors, the co-founder and CEO of Salesforge. With over a decade in B2B sales and leading large teams, Frank is now shaking up email marketing by enabling personalized emails at scale. Frank has an inspiring journey, having traveled the world. We'll talk about his journey from sales expert to tech entrepreneur, diving into the future of sales and the impact of technology in marketing. Frank's insights are a goldmine for anyone interested in the evolving world of sales and tech startups, so enjoy. Frank, welcome. Can you start by giving us a rundown of who you are, your background, and what is Salesforge?
Yeah, so like a good intro that you did. I've been in sales for over a decade, started really my career at Google. And then after that, I worked for a bunch of B2B SaaS companies in different spaces, but predominantly in the MarTech, whether that's selling data, doing machine learning, data visualization, etc. And in my last essentially gig, I led a sales team of about 50. At which point I decided to exit and start my own company. Because guess what? It's great to be selling a software for somebody else, but maybe at one point in your life, you want to be selling your own software, because why not? You probably have accumulated a bunch of experience, and that kind of gives you a higher probability of succeeding as a startup. And then you essentially think to yourself, what is it that you're good at? And in my case, there's three spaces I'm really good at, essentially MarTech, sales tech, and travel tech. And you're essentially trying to figure out your odds of success. So in the MarTech, there's a bunch of software that's being built, maybe not necessarily the best place to go into. In travel tech, the margins are relatively low, I would argue. And then sales tech, this is where I believe there's a humongous potential for disruption, especially with large language models and the sophistication levels that we're currently at. So I thought to myself, Salesforge, that's the type of product I want to build. And so what does it do? At its current state, what it does, it solves two major problems for large and small companies, even solopreneurs. So on one side, that's solving the email deliverability issues. So maybe 5 years ago, a lot of companies could be sending kind of thousands and thousands of emails, but that's not anymore the case today. And a lot of emails essentially land in the spam, is the bottom line. So you need to essentially have a sort of new state-of-the-art sort of software architecture and a process essentially against that to ensure that your emails land in the primary inbox of your prospects. So that's one area that we specialize in. And the second area is essentially crafting unique emails to your prospects rather than sending a bunch of templates that your prospects have a fatigue with, and ultimately all of them or many of them land in spam, because I get a lot of these templates myself as a founder. One thing maybe to note for a lot of people out there who maybe haven't started yet a company, but once you switch your title to a founder, you start getting a lot of emails. And you will see all those essentially templates, all those cold emails landing in your inbox, whether that's in spam or the primary inbox. And you'll look at that and you'll be like, oh, this hasn't been really crafted for me. It smells like automation. And let me click on that beautiful spam button. That's quite normal these days. And essentially a lot of sales organizations are struggling. So companies that have, legit software to sell, service or product to sell, they're struggling to cut through the noise. And why email as a starting point for us as a software, even though we're going to do a lot more things in the future, is because email is the most complex channel to tackle. Is still the most what's called CAC efficient channel. CAC efficient means from cost perspective, it's still the cheapest channel for you to acquire your users if you do things correctly, though. Just to note on that front. And it applies to, it's a default channel. It applies to, whether you're a startup or whether you are a large company. You're still going to be using most likely emails to engage with your prospects in one way or another. So that's why we started with email, but we are definitely more ambitious by introducing other capabilities in the future. But yeah, in a nutshell, Salesforge enables you to craft unique emails in any language, whether that's English, German, etc., and send that to your prospects and essentially drastically increase your open rates and your reply rates. It's improving buyer experience as well along the way, the seller kind of result.
Many companies offer something a bit similar, but I think their personalization is rather basic. They'll pick up the name of the person, her role or company, and plug that into a template. How far can Salesforge go with personalization? What can a user expect?
Yeah, so the way that the whole space has evolved, just to give you some idea, back in the old days, everything used to exist in spreadsheets. Then Salesforce came in, and then other sort of softwares came in to try and automate. And this is where you could sort of plug in suddenly these dynamic variables like the first name, the company name, etc. But at the end of the day, you were still sending templates with some sort of dynamic or rules-based, what I would call customization. And the way that the space has evolved right now, we're at the stage where content can be programmatically computed, essentially, in technical terms, to every single individual by using some sort of logic. And in our case, the logic is rather straightforward, as in we look at what is it that you sell as a business. That's being inserted in the software. You have to kind of outline your value prop, the pain that you're solving, etc. And that's what we use as an input data for every single interaction. And then we look at what is it that we know about the prospective buyer, right? And typically what a sales rep does in any company is they go on the LinkedIn profile of the person, maybe they check out Twitter, maybe they go on the website, etc. But typically what they do is they access websites to try and do some research before they engage, if they're really crafting a great email manually. So we just automate that process. What we do is we essentially fetch the information from these different data sources. And this is what allows us to know a lot about the prospective buyer and doing that programmatically at scale. So we essentially have these two data sets. We then have our proprietary AI engine that sits essentially on top of that, and then that does the computation. And the other thing just to note on that, why this is important, is not just from a perspective of, oh, let's personalize and let's just send great emails, but actually content does matter as part of email deliverability overall. So when you're setting static templated content, including newsletters, that can harm your deliverability rates. So the only way to combat is if you randomize essentially the content, or you make it unique somehow at scale. So randomization means there's some sort of rules-based logic, but making it unique means you have to use large language models to make the content unique at scale to each and one of the recipients. So that's also becomes like super important and helps you kind of deliver more emails in the primary inbox.
Yesterday night, I was creating custom GPTs, and they're, once it's set up, it's fantastic, but there is a significant amount of time. I mean, if you want to have something, that's great, right? There's a significant amount of effort that you have to put in to actually get the GPT that you're looking for. If I sign up for Salesforge today, what does the onboarding look like, and how much effort do you have to put in to, hit the ground running?
Great question. We're a bit of a sales-led / PLG company, kind of mix of both essentially. So product-led and sales-led, a mix of both. On a sales-led front, we do actually send quite a lot of unique emails, and then customers come up to us, on board to us, and our kind of main channel is actually cold email. Why users sign up. And when they onboard with us, what we typically want to do is we want to force them to jump on the call. So there's an onboarding checklist essentially within the app that tells you, please sign up for an onboarding call and please do these various steps. Now, value realization comes typically after 3 to 4 weeks. So meaning you're going to start seeing your results in 3 to 4 weeks. And the reason why it takes that long is because cold email is not simple altogether. If you want to just, send a few emails, you can send those few emails literally within 10 minutes within the platform. There's even dummy data, etc., to experiment, etc. But you can compute unique emails just, instantly within 10 minutes. But if you want to do things correctly, as in ensuring your deliverability is high for your domains that you're using right now, you need to go to what's called a warm-up phase, and that takes at least a couple of weeks. So you need to kind of prepare for any sort of campaigns that you want to be launching. So I always say patience is a virtue, because if you kind of rush anything these days when it comes to cold emails, you're typically not going to see great results. So one way to answer this question is naturally there's plenty of tooltips and stuff that we do within the app. A lot of that is powered actually by Intercom. So Intercom is really powerful, and I would highly recommend startup founders to check out Intercom, because Intercom gives all startups are 1 year for free. And then I think the next year is like 50% off. So it's a relatively good deal in the early days, but actually it becomes super expensive in the later stages. So that's also another piece of advice.
You have to scale fast.
Yes, you have to scale fast to be able to afford Intercom. That's very true. And in our case, because we're bootstrapped, at least for now, it is definitely a pickle to be thinking about platforms like Intercom. So Intercom powers a lot of sort of app onboarding. It has I highly recommend building out, let's say, the knowledge base, because people do check out the knowledge base. They don't want to be necessarily speaking to support or speaking to, even a sales rep like me. They want to be going to a knowledge base, checking out, various questions that they have and then getting the answers instantly. The second part is because the software is rather unique versus any competitors that we have in the market. This is why we want to have that phone call with the user, because, it's not that complicated, but still there are some complexities. It's better just to have that initial conversation. So it still sucks a lot of time of your day to be having these conversations, but it will have a positive impact on your retention.
And what do I have to do to get started? I need to connect your tool to my inbox?
Yes. Or? So only a couple of things, really. Maybe three in total. So one thing is connect your mailbox or mailboxes. Number two is upload the list of leads. So typically we just need the first name, last name, email address, and the LinkedIn URL, because we can also access LinkedIn and essentially personalize emails against that. And then you also need to describe your value prop, essentially. So that takes also a bit of time. But altogether, if you know what you're doing, that's roughly about 10 minutes altogether. And then you can already start crafting your first initial emails if you want to kind of get started like immediately. And then the platform, what it does, it sends these unique emails out. And then when you receive any replies from any of your prospects, across any of the mailboxes, really, it lands in a section what we call the Prime Box. And Prime Box is like Superhuman. So if somebody is familiar with Superhuman, essentially it's a platform that gives you that ultimate experience. So it's like the Apple of Gmail, essentially. It's super fast. It's designed to process a lot of replies, etc. So that's what we're building, but for sales in particular. So that sort of capability exists within Salesforge. So it aggregates replies. It helps you to tackle the replies faster. We're building also AI into that as well to write up replies much faster than kind of writing yourself, etc. So there's going to be a lot of cool stuff in there. But it's all centered around the seller and helping them do their job sort of faster and more efficient as well.
Is that a tool that's targeting specifically experienced salesperson, or if you're, let's say, a solopreneur who's starting a business and want to do some direct outreach, is that a tool that they can use as well?
It's designed for both. So we're trying to dumb down the platform as much as we can. So even though we're tackling very complex problems, we're trying to make it like super simple. That even a solopreneur could start using it and off they go, off to the races, right? So all the way to complex teams. So we even have companies with over 10,000 employees using the platform. So it's designed for different scales, but we're currently focusing really on the smaller players in the market. So solopreneurs, SMBs, and even agencies as well that may be servicing multiple clients. And the reason for that is very simple, because we only do email for now. And typically, if you go upmarket, you need to have multiple other sort of enterprise-grade capabilities, multiple other features, and you just don't have that in the early days, right? So you need to have your what's called the beachhead. So who are your first initial clients that you're looking to acquire? Where will your initial traction come from? And that's like super important. To kind of focus really on one. So when you're building a platform, let's say, and we could have done LinkedIn automation, or we could have done the cold call. So you need to focus on the one channel that you want to do really, really well, that nobody else will do better than you, and you wanted to be doing it at least 10x better than your nearest competitor, if you can. Otherwise, you'll have problems with competition. And so in our case, we decided email should be the first channel, and then we'll tackle the other ones and do it like really, really well. Drill down on that, and then work with those people that just use email and want to see really good results from email. Because a lot of people, say email is dead these days. It became a lot more difficult for different reasons. Typically, kind of we see three main problem areas why email became so difficult? First of all, there's a lot more emails that are being sent these days, billions of emails per day. So volume has increased massively. The secondary kind of lens to that is that there's more essentially companies that they're reaching out to the same prospects. So there's the same number of buyers, but there's more sellers out there. So hence, buyers are receiving more emails on average. Then the other trend, which is massive, is actually cybersecurity threats. So a lot of companies these days are being penetrated via cold email. So cold emails are being sent to a bank, a company, and there's a bunch of stories out there. I recommend checking out on Google how banks have been penetrated by receiving a cold email, then ransomware was downloaded, and then millions have been sucked out from the banks. And then the other trend is naturally, how do the major email service providers look at these trends? So let's say like Gmail and Outlook. So they became more sophisticated, essentially. So when they see that there's more emails that affects their users, when there's more cybersecurity threats, what they start doing is they start filtering a lot more of these emails. And then some of the good emails also land in spam. And that's just normal. That's how Google operates. I used to work at Google myself. So nothing is error-proof, essentially, in life, even at Google. It's becoming really complex. And then the good players in the ecosystem naturally want to deliver the emails to the prospects because they have a legitimate product that they sell to their ideal customers that may benefit from that. And so it used to be much easier to send these emails back in the day, but not anymore. And I always say, if you do decide to start a startup, so you tackle a problem that's very complex, then build a software that solves that complex problem. And it's not just, the problem doesn't have to be just complex, but the market has to be humongous. And because billions of organizations out there are sending emails these days, it's a huge opportunity to solve the deliverability piece. It's a huge opportunity to solve these billions of templates that are being sent, because majority of the emails that are being sent in the world are templates. 98% of total emails that are being sort of circulated out there are all templated. So the opportunity to even personalize an email somehow dynamically a lot more is humongous. And hence, there's a lot more other startups in our space that are entering and trying to solve the same problem. But you should always ask yourself why you are the right person for this, and why you will win instead of other 100 potential founders in your space that are also entering, because it is a hyper-competitive environment. And our answer is, we've been in this space. So I've been in this space for over a decade. You know exactly the pains. You know exactly the customer because you're the customer. So we're building it for ourselves. So what we're doing is we're dog fooding. So we're using our own software to scale. We can see exactly the problems in the software. We're fixing the bugs immediately. And that's a beautiful thing. It also helps us to reduce our cost base, right? Because if you're using your own software, you don't have to pay for another software. And these softwares are very expensive actually out there. So you should always think about founder market fit when you're starting a startup. And I can tell you it makes a huge difference because you can click with your prospect instantly, because I'm from this space. I'm speaking to other prospects that are also in sales. And you just click better. You build rapport faster and many other things. But that's not the only thing. Founder market fit is super important. But the last piece, or that maybe some people are not necessarily researching a lot into, but how are you going to disrupt maybe on the unit economics front of you? So for example, most of our competitors charge per mailbox or per seat. So typically the way that the model works is the more employees a company has, the more they will buy from that software. And we believe that's broken. The whole model around charging per seat, charging per mailbox, etc. Typically that's anywhere between 50 euros to 150 euros. But the ultimate model these days, so the model that will win all the markets, it's a consumption-based pricing or value-based pricing. It has a few names. But ultimately charge for what is it that a user is actually using. And we believe that model will win ultimately versus anything else that's on the market, because having, let's say, more sales reps or more bums on the seats does not mean your output increases. That's not how it works typically. And so there is typically license also underutilization. So let's say when the employees go on holidays, etc., these licenses are not being used. So what is the better way to align cost to value that you're delivering? So let's say the value that we're delivering to our clients is pipeline. We believe that the more good emails that our prospects will send, the more pipeline they will see. So hence, let's charge for the consumption. So what is it they're actually consuming? Because the more they send emails essentially in our platform, our cost increases. So hence we're passing that cost in the form of sort of credits over to our users. And that's a far more superior model long-term than deciding, okay, let me just charge for one user like 50 euros, like, just make it as simple. But guess what? You're also leaving money on the table because we have some clients that scale massively through us. And if, I will be charging them just 50 euros for a seat, I will be, leaving money on the table. So consumption-based pricing is the ultimate pricing. How do like the big players like AWS or Amazon, how do they charge for their pricing? It's cloud credits, right? So same with Google, it's also credit-based. So I believe that the seat-based pricing model is dead. And so a lot of our competitors have this pricing, which is fantastic for us. The serious and very smart buyers will look at this and they're like, okay, I need to buy for my sales team of 10 licenses, and that's going to cost me X. Versus this other pricing model where it's consumption-based. And typically in the early days, it's much, much cheaper. So hence, your ability to acquire that user will be actually far higher than charging per seat. Mm-hmm. And then customers are happy to pay more when they use the platform more. So that's totally fine. So they get that versus a static model. Now, the downside with static models, or upside with sort of static model like seat-based pricing is that companies can forecast better. So if they're, let's say, paying for 10 seats, then when you do sort of your forecasting, you know how much these 10 seats will cost you, and you know there's not more than you typically pay. Whereas with consumption-based pricing, you can't always forecast how much is it going to end up paying.
I agree with you, but if you look at it from a value creation or return on investment, especially for your specific product, ideally what you would like to see as an owner or as a leader is I'm investing in that product with a relatively low pricing point to get in, but ultimately I should be able to see a correlation between that usage and the growth of my pipeline. Right. So I think for you, exactly. Specifically for you versus AWS, I mean, it's easy to use a lot of resources on AWS if your tech team is not taking care of cleaning things up. Right. So you can easily end up being a big user, but it's just because you didn't clean the house. Right. Whereas I think for you, ideally, you can be able to show that correlation. I want to tap into your sales experience because you have a lot of it. And, I was asking initially, is that something that less experienced salespeople or founders can use? You've sent millions of emails yourself. You've built a software to support sales team. Can you tell me what are the characteristics of a good cold email strategy? What works, what doesn't work, or what will work in the future?
Good question. Typically, if you're going to ask this question to 100 people, you're going to get 100 different responses. So I'll give one of mine. I'm always a big believer in to validate where the prospect has a problem, right? So you reach out to 100 prospects. You say, hey, listen, do you have this problem? And you want to just get an answer, yes or no. That's as simple as that. Yes, some people will say use framework X, use framework Y, but really dumb it down in your head, especially as a solo founder. If you're not into sales, let's say you're a developer, right? And a lot of developers actually do cold emailing. We have a lot of developers using the platform and they do sales, but they're not salesy. And I said, listen, just, when you reach out to the prospect, don't say what you do. Just ask, hey, do you have this problem essentially? If yes, is this a priority for you to solve right now or not? So I'm kind of dumbing it down, but essentially you'll craft an email around that. Hey, I was wondering if you have this problem, something you're looking to solve in 2024. Is this a priority ? And keep it like super short because typically long ass emails means it's automation. When people are like, hey, this is what we do, this is what we can offer you. Nobody really cares what you do. What people care about, can you solve my problems? And I'm happy to pay for them if you can. And this is a priority right now. So the biggest problem in outbound sales is the timing. So you need to re-engage with the same prospect multiple times in the year. Typically, I say once a quarter. So you say, okay, do you have this pain? Yes and no. So a simple way to kind of end the email, is this a priority ? That's my favorite soft call to action. Soft call to action means, it's an open-ended essentially question versus a hard CTA, which is like asking for time. Hey, would you have 15 minutes next week? But you have not validated that the person has a problem before you ask for time. Typically, you don't just send one email. Typically, the most optimal also from email durability standpoint, it just sent 3 emails in total. So that means you're sending an initial email and you do a couple of follow-ups and you pace it out correctly. So let's say a follow-up will be after sort of 3 days, because a person needs to digest even your question. Or maybe discuss with a colleague, is this even priority? And then come back after 3 days. So never send a follow-up next day. And then the last follow-up will be typically after a week, because sometimes people are on holidays maybe this time of the year, or they're super busy. But next week, they're happy to pick up this problem statement. In total, it's like 3 emails maximum, because the likelihood of getting a reply after the 3rd email is relatively low, and the probability of getting a spam report from your prospect is relatively high. So I would not send more than 3 emails. I would use other channels, because if you are using LinkedIn or you've decided to give them a phone call, it's much better, because multi-touch, meaning multi-touch essentially across multiple channels, so LinkedIn, Twitter, maybe WhatsApp, whatever it is that you use, drives up the conversion rates significantly higher. What do you do in the follow-ups? So don't say in the follow-ups, hey, any thoughts on this? Or I'm just bumping my email. That's like very annoying. So if you want to send an extra email to a prospect, just add more reasons for them to reply back to you, rather than be like an annoying wife, essentially, nagging for a response.
How would you add more reasons for them to reply?
One way would be, for example, add some sort of case studies. A case study in the form of, hey, we did something similar for one of your competitors. And somebody says, we've done something for your competitors, and people start thinking about this. Maybe we could also do something similar. Because people love to copy their competitors, right? So you can drop, hey, this is something that we did for a competitor of yours. Would you want me to replicate a similar results to you as well? Another way would be like, hey, would you like me to send you a video, how this could look, let's say, on your website, or how this could, work or play out? And then you shoot a quick Loom video, and there's also alternatives in the market like Vidgeart, etc., and send that video to them. But I would never send personalized videos to prospects cold. I would definitely ask them for sort of permission if they would want me to send that video. And I will spend like a minute or two to craft that unique video for them. It shouldn't take too long. So you should get into the sort of a process of doing things. And then the final email. So let's say the email number 3, it could be like something simple. Sometimes you're barking up the wrong tree, meaning you're going after the wrong person in the company. And you should just simply ask, hey, this might not be relevant for you. Is this relevant for somebody else? And guess what people don't do? They don't just forward sometimes emails to their colleagues, because they don't give a damn what, about some of their colleagues in the organization. But if you ask nicely, hey, is there somebody else that they should be speaking to? Then in a lot of cases, they will say, okay, sure, I'm CCing right now my colleague, etc. Another thing that you can do is, because people don't like to speak to salespeople as well. They don't want to be speaking to salespeople, but they're still happy to kind of qualify the opportunity for themselves. So what you can do in the final email, and that works fantastic for us, hey, I bet you don't have any time for this. Would you like me to send you a video of a demo video, essentially, instead? So this is like a static video, and this is how you kind of can finish off the sequence. And yeah, you don't send more emails. You either follow up with the same prospect after 3 months with another campaign with a different copy, etc., or you do what's called multi-threading. So one of the sort of best ways to penetrate an account, so meaning go after the company and close a deal with them, is to actually reach out to multiple individuals in the company, typically 2 to 3 individuals in parallel. That's what we do as well. And what you can do is what's called sequentially. So you reach out to person 1, person 1 has not responded, you reach out to person 2 doesn't respond, and you reach out to person 3, and then you kind of repeat that cycle. So that's super important in enterprise selling, but you could do that, also in the bigger markets with smaller players. But I would say always keep it simple.
I want to switch gear a little bit, because I think that's a good segue, because you have that sales experience, but then you launch a tech startup. I'd like you to tell me a bit about that experience, how you've been through it, because I come from the business development side myself, and I'm managing an ad tech company, among other things. So I've had to learn to develop a product strategy, prioritize features, and also work with the engineering team. So tell me a bit about your experience and how the journey has been so far.
Good questions. In my last job, I was leading a sales team, quite a large one. And so I had like over 20 SDRs, over 10 account executives, mid-management team. And so I brought a startup from C to Series A stage. And then I exited. And then I thought to myself, actually, do I become again another head of sales for another company? So that was option 1. And option 2 was like, is there something else that I should be doing with my life? And I'm typically a person that likes to be uncomfortable, let's call it that way. And that typically means you should start your own startups. And because I'm getting old, I thought to myself, maybe I should start my first startup as well. So at that point, which was around sort of November, actually last year, I had literally two choices in my head whether I become a head of sales. And I literally had an offer to work for a fantastic company based in Estonia to become their head of sales. And we're just about to actually sign the contract, etc. And then there was another opportunity to start my own startup. And I thought to myself, if I'm not going to start my own startup right now, then I may never do it. Maybe let's park that offer. There's always an opportunity to come back because good people are always in the market. Good people always are in jobs, essentially. I thought to myself, I'll always find a job. It doesn't matter. So let me do this crazy thing called a startup. So I went to actually Berlin to go to a pre-seed accelerator called Antler. Well, essentially, it's an accelerator for startups that just gets together a batch of people. Typically, it's 40 to 60 individuals, some tech people, some commercial people, product managers, and essentially hungry. I call them actually startup wannabes. We all wanted to start a startup. Not many did in the end, but that's not the story. But essentially, I came with an idea with Salesforge already into it, and I just wanted to mold it, essentially. And the first things you want to validate, do people even need this product? So are the problems are just in my head, or also other people have them? So what you typically want to do is you want to do a bunch of user interviews, speak to those users. I was already kind of messaging them on LinkedIn. I was cold emailing people, seeing great results using a competitor. I got over like 45 interviews in total. So that's a lot of interviews actually for validation exercise. And you want to ask yourself, okay, is the problem big enough? If we're going to build this, do you think people will buy this, etc.? And there's a bunch of material on this on YC School. So if you go on YouTube, the Y Combinator School, just go through a bunch of those videos and they'll tell you how to do that properly. So if you follow that by the book, you'll be golden. Now, the best validation is if you're going to ask a person to pay for your product without having shipped a single line of code. And that's what we did. So we managed to get 4 paid pre-orders before shipping a single line of code to validate whether people would actually just pull out the credit card and pay for this. That's the best form of validation. Because otherwise, if you're just going to be, again, basing it on interviews or your gut feel, etc., you're going to spend all those months, maybe years building that product, and then you will not get it to PMF. So PMF meaning product market fit. Essentially, all that time was wasted more or less.
How did you get to those pre-orders? Did you offer some sort of preferential discount to get in early?
Correct. One thing I don't advise to do is to do any lifetime deals whatsoever. So we have 0 lifetime customers deals because that can ruin your business relatively quickly. But you can do a really good deal for them. And we did a 10-year and a 5-year deal at rock bottom prices, like 100 euros or something for 5 years or 10 years. So let's say when you do a user interview, at the end of it, so you explain also what you're building, etc. And then you say, would you buy something like this? And then the person says, actually, yes. Yeah, I would actually love to buy something like this. And it's only $100, right? So $100 is enough to kind of validate. So it's not like $10. Like the $10 is not validation in my opinion. But if somebody a stranger is willing to give you $100 for a product, that's validation to me. And do that a few times. Not too many, but just enough to say to yourself, people are willing to pull their credit card out and pay for this. Now, the weirdest thing that happened actually in a coffee shop in Berlin. So I was speaking to another Antler co-founder essentially about Salesforge and what we do. And there was a guy in the background that overheard my idea and what we're building. And he thought to himself, damn, this is so fucking awesome. So he came up to me and said, man, what you're building is amazing. It was a total stranger in a coffee shop. And he said, how can I buy this? And I gave him the URL, and he literally went in a coffee shop and bought it and paid for a pre-order. So that was the weirdest example. And I thought, if a stranger in a coffee shop would buy a software, then I'm onto something. And the weirdest thing is that stranger was not even a salesperson. He was a CTO at a company. So even a non-ICP, so non-ICP, non-ideal customer profile essentially pays for your product and is willing to pay without having a single line of code written, then we're onto something. So that kind of gave you that conviction that we should just plow through, build an MVP, and then ship the whole product. So now around the co-founders. So this is typically the biggest problem that you have as a solopreneur. And I typically don't advise to do the whole journey yourself. It's just very rare that you can succeed on your own. So just get somebody smart as your counterpart. And it has to add incremental sort of skill set to you. If you're in sales, guess what? You probably need a techie. If you're a tech guy, you need somebody that's commercial. So typically there's only two things that a startup has to do: build stuff and sell stuff. You can sell stuff, either you're really great at marketing, or you're at sales, or you're both. Now, my strongest arm is sales. My second strongest arm is marketing, but I wouldn't call myself a marketing person per se. And then you need somebody on the tech front. Now, tech is relatively complex in itself, so you need the right tech guy for what you're building. And in my case, I was lucky I had two of them. So where do you find those people? One thing is you can, again, go through one of these pre-seed accelerators and you can meet the person, right? So you can meet your potential co-founder. And the second thing you can do, which has a pool of very smart people, is go on the Y Combinator matchmaking platform. And essentially, you go on there, there's a bunch of potential founders in Europe, US, essentially all around the world. So they tell you what is it they're building. Maybe they're building nothing, but they tell you what it is that they're up to, what they're inclined to do, etc. And then you can have up to 15 matches a week. So I've done like 30 of those, etc. Trying to figure to myself, who is really the best team for the problem that we're looking to tackle. Now, I was just a piece of the puzzle. And I thought to myself, because what I'm building is going to be so humongous, humongous as in, if somebody knows how big Salesforce is, this is going to be as big as Salesforce, just in a slightly different category. I thought to myself, I need a lot of manpower on the engineering and product front. And then actually, funny enough, before I kind of went to Antler, I met a guy messaged me with a template through Y Combinator. Name's Daniel. And Daniel is our current CTO, and said, hey, I'm looking for great people to start a company with. I had a chat with them prior to Antler, trying to figure out, whether they're the right team. But essentially, Daniel came with David, and David is his friend from the first grade. So they went to the school for all the years, and they went to the same university in Denmark. They built a few great projects together, but they were always missing this commercial piece to the startup aspirations. So I thought to myself, okay, there's these two very smart dudes. One of them specializes in the back end. Second one specializes in the front end, product and product design. And then there's me. And I thought, this is a fucking awesome combo for what we're building. So you got your team, you got your problem nailed down, you know what you're building. Well, it's time to build an MVP, I guess, a prototype. And instead of building this ourselves, we were somehow lucky where we bumped in one of the Facebook groups. So there's a bunch of Facebook groups, a lot of solopreneurs, founders, and etc., where there was this one agency in Poland that said, hey guys, we're looking for a startup who's looking to build an MVP. We're going to build that for you. And all you have to do is a case study against that. And I thought to myself, that's excellent. If somebody's going to build for us, while we can give them the inputs around, or the scoping around how this has to be built. So it was a no-brainer. So off we went to started working with them, and we shipped an MVP. It was fantastic. We showed it to a bunch of people, validated the problems and what it is that we're building. And though in the end, we decided to scrap it and start from scratch. So that's typically what can happen. You can either build on top of the MVP, or you decide, okay, we need actually a different code base, etc., and then we need to build from scratch. So we actually build from scratch after shipping the MVP. Now, while you're building the product, it's not like you just sit around there and you're hoping for a lot of customers on day one. No, you do what's called a waitlist as well. So we had over 300 people on the waitlist. So there was a lot of people on there that gave us essentially a pool of potential clients to convert. And we did. So that's one thing you do. You should have a wait list. And then additionally, on top of the wait list, what you should do is you should secure what I would call pilots. So pilots essentially is you give your software for free to a bunch of clients once you ship your beta, and to play around for a month or two to see if there's enough value in the software to convert them. Now, the learning from that, what I would say is never do free pilots, because out of the 10 pilots that we did, we only converted one. And we realized that actually the major problem is that you give a software for free and people don't stick to, let's say, timelines. So they're not fully committed. And hence there were a lot of issues with the pilot. So we ended up only converting one and we expected to convert about 4 or 5. But then after that, we're off to the races, using our own software, dogfooding, reaching out to people, being in different Slack communities, WhatsApp groups, etc. And that helped us to sign a lot of clients. And actually our first client post-launch came from a Slack community. And that client was paying us $500, which is 5x more than our highest plan, which is $96 right now. So you should be doing things that don't scale in the early days. And that's exactly what we did. We went to communities, etc. But you should definitely, after you've gone through this phase, maybe for a month or two, you should figure out for yourself, what's the one channel that will scale for you? And that could be SEO, that could be ads, that could be cold email, cold calling, etc. But in outbound, there's only two things that scale. That's either email or cold calling, essentially.
I got 1.5 questions left for you.
Yeah.
The first one is, what can we expect from Salesforge in the coming months? Like what you have on your radar, your pipeline, and also where can our audience find you in case you don't send them a cold email?
That's true. We send a lot of emails. Typically, you can find us on LinkedIn, on our website, salesforge.ai. We're actually going down maybe 3 main paths. So already next month, actually, we're building our own private email infrastructure. So the idea is that the clients wouldn't necessarily need to get Gmail or Outlook as their mailboxes to run their email infrastructure. And this is to help with email deliverability front. And because we think that Gmail and Outlook will be tightening their belts further in terms of filtering, etc. Another aspect is we're definitely looking to unlock the other 2 channels like LinkedIn and it will give the ability to dial prospects as well. And last but not least, we're big believers that the future will be very different in the world of sales. And that means actually we'll be bringing into the platform autonomous sales AI agents into the play, where organizations could augment the existing sales teams with autonomous AI agent capabilities, or even decide to fully replace. It's up to them. So we believe that some companies will be transforming themselves gradually over time, where there will be less headcount and there's already a lot of automation, but there will be more automation that will be autonomous automation, because there's a lot of problems that exist with sales teams these days. And actually, one of the ways to solve that is actually to pass on some of the repetitive tasks over to autonomous, essentially bots, to execute. So we believe the future is bright. We'll be part of that future. And then typically the way we roll, just maybe final piece of advice to everybody, is we take requests from our users, from our paying customers, what they want to see in the platform. And you can use a free platform called Canny.io, CANNY.io. Install that and ask your users what they want to see, and then people can vote for this stuff. So even though I mentioned some of the things what we want to build, if a paying client will tell us we need to build something else, we'll probably got to be building that.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for your generosity in terms of advice. I think you have a great product. Seems like you have a solid team. So let's stay in touch, and wishing you all the best.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And as usual, you can find the show notes at stunnenup.com.